Does all of you know Jai Radha Madhav? Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. Thank you.
When you come to a little to this side.
So today we'll be reading from one of the Chatushloki words of Bhagavad Gita. It is chapter 10, text number 9. First we'll start with the prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurun Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurun Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, this is chapter 10, verse number 9. So Lord Krishna is speaking to Arjuna. Madchitta madgata prana bodhayanta parasparam katayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. Madchitta madgata prana bodhayanta parasparam katayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. Madchitta madgata prana bodhayanta parasparam katayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. Chapter 10, text 9. It's on page number 431. So we'll also read the word-to-word translation. Mat chitta, their minds fully engaged in me. Mad gata prana, their lives devoted to me. Bodhayantaha, preaching. Parasparam, among themselves. Katayantaha, talking. Cha, also. Mam, about me. Nityam, perpetually. Tushyanti, become pleased. Cha, also. Ramanti, enjoy transcendental bliss. Cha, also. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. So here Krishna is describing the qualities of his pure devotees. Right? So we'll read the purport. Purport. Pure devotees whose characteristics are mentioned here engage themselves fully in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Their minds cannot be diverted from the lotus feet of Krishna. Their talks are solely on the transcendental subject matters. The symptoms of pure devotees are described in this verse specifically. The devotees of the Supreme Lord are 24 hours daily engaged in glorifying the qualities and pastimes of the Supreme Lord. Their hearts and souls are constantly submerged in Krishna, and they take pleasure in discussing him with other devotees. In the preliminary stage of devotional service, they relish the transcendental pleasure from the service itself, and in the mature stage, they are actually situated in the love of God. Once situated in the transcendental position, they can relish the highest perfection which is exhibited by the Lord in his abode. Lord Caitanya likens transcendental devotional service to the sowing of a seed in the heart of the living entity. There are innumerable living entities traveling throughout the different planets of the universe, and out of them, there are a few who are fortunate enough to meet a pure devotee and get the chance to understand devotional service. This devotional service is just like a seed, and if it is sown in the heart of a living entity, and if he goes on hearing and chanting the Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, that seed fructifies just as the seed of a tree fructifies with regular watering. The spiritual plant of devotional service gradually grows and grows until it penetrates the covering of the material universe and enters into the Brahmajyoti effulgence in the spiritual sky. In the spiritual sky also, that plant grows more and more until it reaches the highest planet, which is called Goloka Vrindavanam, the supreme planet of Krishna. Ultimately, the plant takes shelter under the lotus feet of Krishna and rests there. Gradually, as a plant grows fruits and flowers, that plant of devotional service also produces fruits, and the watering process in the form of chanting and hearing goes on. This plant of devotional service is fully described in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela, chapter 19. It is explained that when the complete plant takes shelter under the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, one becomes fully absorbed in the love of God. Then he cannot live even for a moment without being in contact with the Supreme Lord, just as a fish cannot live without water. In such a state, the devotee actually attains the transcendental qualities in contact with the Supreme Lord. The Srimad Bhagavatam is also full of such narrations about the relationship between the Supreme Lord and his devotees. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam is very dear to the devotees. As stated in Bhagavatam itself, 12.13.18, Srimad Bhagavatam Puranam Amalam Yat Vaishnavanam Priyam. In this narration, there is nothing about material activities, economic development, sense gratification, or liberation. Srimad Bhagavatam is the only narration in which the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord and his devotees is fully described. Thus, the realized souls in Krishna consciousness take continual pleasure in hearing such transcendental literatures, just as a young boy and girl take pleasure in association. Jai. Yeah, so here in this purport, Srila Prabhupada is very nicely describing what are the characteristics of devotees. So a devotee is not inhibited by the external situation he is faced in. He is always absorbed and focused about how he can serve devotees and Krishna. So here, right? So here, one of the processes or one of the main processes of serving Krishna is hearing and chanting about Krishna, right? And this is also, these two are the primary processes for this Kali Yuga, because others are much more difficult in this age. So the devotee constantly remembers Krishna by reading about him. He discusses that incidents or pastimes of Krishna with his other devotees, and then he chants the holy name. So these are the primary core activities. And if there is any service which the Vaishnavas request him, that he would also do that. He or she also would do that. Right? So as Gaura Purnima is coming, I thought we'll also describe a little bit about Lord Caitanya, because Lord Caitanya is Krishna himself, but he comes in the form of a devotee. Why? So that by we studying his life, we can understand how to become a devotee. So his life itself is a lesson for all of us, right? So what is the first principle of taking up to spiritual life or trying to learn about Krishna is to accept a spiritual master, right? So although he is Krishna himself, right, but to set an example to others on how to approach Krishna, he himself accepts his devotee. His devotee's name is Ishwarapuri. Lord Caitanya, he takes the shelter of Ishwarapuri, and only after accepting the Diksha of Ishwarapuri, he doesn't start the preaching activities, although he is the Lord himself. So this emphasizes the principle of accepting the spiritual master. A spiritual master is essential. It's not that, oh, I can read any book on my own and I meditate using an app on the phone and I'm spiritual. No, unless we are constantly taking guidance from superior Vaishnava who can help us navigate our complex lives, right? Our lives are very complex. We have so many responsibilities, we have duties, and at the same time we have so many desires, right? So the spiritual master helps us to navigate, okay, this desire, I think you need to overcome that. You need to not act upon it. This particular desire, you can dovetail in the service of Krishna, right? So he gives us guidance by which we, the soul, are not controlled by desires, right? But we use those desires to move towards Krishna. So accepting a spiritual master is a very, very essential requirement for approaching Krishna. Right? So after Lord Caitanya, he takes shelter of Srila Ishwarapuri. Then he starts rigorous preaching about Krishna consciousness. So he appeared in the year 1408, I guess. I thought I made notes. I forgot. Where was that? Yeah. So he appeared in the town of Mayapur on February 18th, 1486. Right? Yeah. So again, coming back, right? So after his young age, he accepted the shelter of Srila Ishwarapuri, and then he started the preaching process, which was primarily based upon chanting and discussing about Lord Krishna. Right? So he highly emphasized reading Srimad Bhagavatam, right? Because what is Srimad Bhagavatam? Srimad Bhagavatam is, as Prabhupada also described in this purport, is basically the description of the relationship between the devotee and the Lord, right? So once we hear about them or once we meditate about them, we will get a glimpse of the love which is shared between the devotee and Krishna, and that actually enchants us, and that gives us a taste, or it inspires us also to, yes, I also want to have that kind of a pleasure in my heart, right? So that encourages us to develop bhakti towards Krishna. So regular reading of Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing and reading of Srimad Bhagavatam is also one of the essential principles of the means to approach Krishna. Right? So Lord Caitanya, along with his close associates, he used to sing all-night kirtans, like all throughout the night, in a place called Srivasangan. He and his close associates used to sing kirtans glorifying Krishna, and all of the others surrounding him, they become startled, and they are like confused, or they are also envious, saying that, oh, these people think that they are great devotees, right? So at that time, this chanting and this loud chanting and reciting of kirtan was not popular, right? Lord Caitanya was the one who started this, right? So that time, the existing brahmanas who are in that place, they were highly apprehensive about this, and they started putting so many roadblocks, or they were actually trying to prevent him from doing this, right? Because Lord Chaitanya was not distinguishing between caste, creed, color, or anything. He was freely distributing this kirtana process to everyone.
So it keeps on falling.
Thank you. So then, Lord Chaitanya slowly realized that these people who are like, especially the Brahmins and the higher caste people, they will never accept him if he is a householder. So then he decides that in order to them to respect him, he takes sannyas. Because at that point of time in India, anyone who is a sannyas is highly respected. So in that way, he directly avoided directly confronting them, and he accepted sannyas, although he had a widowed mother and his wife, right? So after that, but now he has taken sannyas, but his mother requests him, saying that, oh, if you take sannyas and if you are away somewhere else, then how will I know about you, right? Because for his mother, he was her entire life, right? So at the request of his mother, he stays in a place called Jagannath Puri. So at Jagannath Puri, he stayed for 18 years. So Lord Caitanya lived around, I think, for 50 years, 48 years, right? So out of that 18 years, he stayed in Jagannath Puri, because Jagannath Puri is close to Mayapur, right? And very, very frequently, devotees from Mayapur used to visit Puri often, and so Hachimata, his mother, would know about the activities of the Lord, and she would be at least, be aware of his activities. So she used to be little peaceful, right? So through his activities, right, Lord Chaitanya showed, what is the standard of pure bhakti. In Jagannath Puri, he was constantly chanting, and he was constantly, dealing with his different disciples, teaching them how to practice bhakti. And in fact, he he and his fellow associates were constantly reciting Srimad Bhagavatam all the time, especially the pastime of Dhruva Maharaj. So this pastime of Dhruva Maharaj, Lord Caitanya and Gadadhar Pandit, both of them used to sit together and read, and Gadadhar Pandit used to recite it. And after completing that entire chapter or that entire story of Dhruva Maharaj, Lord Caitanya would say again, please read again. So it used to go on, the same story, they used to read it again and again and again and again. Because he used to relish so much nectar in the relationship of Dhruva, his Guru Narada and Krishna. Right? And the determination of Dhruva. Right? Dhruva was so determined to follow his Guru. Right? And he was like, I think he was like 5 years, and he was alone in the forest. So we can imagine the determination of Dhruva. So Lord Caitanya was very, very pleased by that. And so he highly emphasized this particular pastime and of course Srimad Bhagavatam as a whole. Right? And he also trained his other disciples to systematically develop the theology of bhakti on the basis of Shastra. Right? Especially Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. Right? So he taught them the principles of bhakti, and then he ordered them to go to Vrindavan and extensively study all the scriptures, and based on his teachings develop this theology of bhakti systematically, so that all of us can get benefited, because it's actually a step-by-step process by which we can slowly gradually make progress towards Krishna. Right. Yes. And in this particular purport, Srila Prabhupada is specifically emphasizing that this particular concept of this Bhaktilata Bija. Right? So this concept was basically described by Lord Caitanya to Sanatana Goswami. So this is basically described in the Caitanya Haritamrita, Madhya Leela, chapter 19. Right? So we'll read it again, this part, because it is very important. So this devotional service is just like a seed, and if it is sown in the heart of a living entity, and if he goes on hearing and chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, that seed fructifies just as a seed of a tree fructifies with regular watering. The spiritual plant of devotional service gradually grows and grows until it penetrates the covering of the material universe and enters into the Brahmajyoti effulgence in the spiritual sky. In the spiritual sky also the plant grows more and more, and until it reaches the highest planet, which is called Goloka Vrindavana, the supreme planet of Krishna. Ultimately the plant takes shelter under the lotus feet of Krishna and rests there. Gradually, as a plant grows fruits and flowers, that plant of devotional service also produces fruits, and the watering process in the form of chanting and hearing goes on. This plant of devotional service is fully described in the Caitanya Charitamrita. It is explained there that when the complete plant takes shelter under the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, one becomes fully absorbed in the love of God, then he cannot live even for a moment without being in contact with the Supreme Lord, just as a fish cannot live without water. So this love for Krishna, right, is already there in all of us. But right now, our consciousness is contaminated. And so now, in order to overcome this contamination, right, so this process is described, which is primarily, again, hearing and chanting about Krishna, and in this age specifically chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, right? And so by regularly doing this process, slowly the love for Krishna reawakens in our heart, and it grows just as a plant grows, right? It becomes tall and then it reaches a certain height, right? So similarly, we are covered up with so much of this contamination, right? So to overcome all of the contamination, right, it needs effort, and so by constantly putting effort in this process, which is described here, right, slowly we can overcome all of those coverings and finally develop spiritual consciousness, right? So until that purificatory process is not complete, we will not get the opportunity to love Krishna, right? Before that, it is only practice. It means right now all of us are only practicing because we don't have that love, right? So by practicing constantly and taking guidance from a spiritual teacher, right, this grows, and slowly we will take shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna and rest there, right? Right now we have like so many shelters in our life, right? So if we are agitated, right, we immediately pick up one of our habits and we are absorbed in that, right? So it means that we have shelter on a very material plane, right? So we should take these opportunities where we are frustrated or we are anxious to dive deep into the process of bhakti, identifying which kind of activities in the process of bhakti are attractive to me and putting in effort to absorb ourselves in that, so that through that process or through that particular channel, slowly we'll develop some affection to Krishna, right? And slowly we will also develop this mood of taking shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna and resting there. All right. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
Next, this is also very important shloka. The next.
Okay.
Just give us a few minutes, this translation of the next shloka.
All right. Text number 10.
Yes.
Tesham sadata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam hadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. Translation: to those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Should I also read the purport?
Next time we'll just work on this. Please speak on this shloka. This is
All right.
very interesting too.
All right.
Important, I guess. But you did a wonderful job today. Thank you very much.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
And, especially the story of Caitanya Mahaprabhu was very enlightening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.